Let's talk about The Mandalorian Season 2. This is my Mandalorian Season 2 review as we look at the entirety of the season and I go back and kind of dissect what I liked and what I did not like about this season of The Mandalorian. So, first of all, this will contain spoilers for the season. I'm going to assume that you've already seen every episode of The Mandalorian this season, so let's go ahead and talk about it. The Mandalorian is my favorite piece of Star Wars media that's come out from the Disney era of Star Wars. And I did like it much more than any of the sequel trilogy movies. I liked it more than Rogue One and Solo. I liked it more than even that Clone Wars Season 7, which was great. And I enjoy it more than the video games that I have played. I haven't played all of them yet, but I have played some of them of the Disney era. Not the original ones, but the ones that have come out since Disney purchased Star Wars. And The Mandalorian has given me so much more enjoyment. But of course, that does not mean that this show is not without its flaws. And it does have a few. Now, this season picked up pretty much where the last season left off, which is the story of Mandalorian Dean trying to deliver the child to the Jedi. And it culminated with the delivery to Luke Skywalker, which was one of the most emotional moments for me as a Star Wars fan and as a fan of Luke Skywalker since I was 5 years old. And it was the perfect way to end this season. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be able to top this one, right, going forward. But the thing about this season of Mandalorian is that it was only 8 episodes, so they kept it pretty short. And there weren't too many of those really long episodes that we saw in the first season. And, you know, it really was fun. It gave us a lot of new things. It gave us the first live-action Ahsoka Tano and Bo-Katan. We saw Luke Skywalker and R2-D2 for the first time. We saw the return of Boba Fett. There were a lot of things that hardcore Star Wars fans would appreciate. And there were a lot of things this season that was aimed at the fanboys. And that's one thing that I want to talk about here is the fact that there is a good and bad kind of fan service. And I feel like sometimes with the sequel trilogy movies, they kind of tried too hard and they were too derivative of the past. Whereas with this Mandalorian series, it's similar, but for some reason it feels a lot more genuine and it feels a lot more thorough and well thought out. Obviously, Dave Filoni is going to take his characters like Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano, and give them focus because they are the ones that he sort of really fleshed out in Clone Wars and Rebels. So it doesn't surprise me that him being involved here, he would do that. We also have teases for Grand Admiral Thrawn and things of that nature. Now, one thing I will tell you is that I really, really enjoyed the villain of this season, which was Moff Tarkin. I thought he was great. Giancarlo Esposito's playing like 3 different villains now in TV shows, and his story is certainly not over with. We saw a little bit less of Cara Dune, but what we saw was fine. The Boba Fett stuff was great. Probably my favorite episodes of this season were episode 1, which is let me do chapters. I guess chapter 13 and the last sort of 4 episodes. Like everything from the Ahsoka episode to the end was my favorite. They had a lot of good. The fact that there were less episodes was good because every episode was more effective and better. If this had been 12 episodes for this season, it would have been difficult to really put content for those other 4 episodes. So keeping it to 8 episodes, I think, was fine. But one of the things I will tell you is that up until the series or season finale, up until the last 2 episodes, the Mandalorian himself was the least interesting character in this show. Just keeping it real with you. I feel like every episode kind of introduced a new character. You had kind of this episodic feel to it where every episode brought in like Ahsoka or Bo-Katan or Boba Fett or the sheriff. You know, you've got these sort of characters that are interacting with Mando, which is fine. That's actually not really a bad thing because you want to have a show that has multiple characters. That way you have drama. That way we care about those characters. That way, as the series progresses, we know that Mando's probably not going to die until the very end, if he even does die, but his friends dying, if we have an attachment to them emotionally as an audience, it's going to hit us, right? Just like how seeing Mando say goodbye to Grogu when Grogu went and left with Luke Skywalker was powerful. it's the same concept. You know what I mean? You have to build up the show and get us attached to these characters. And the show really, this season was different than the first season because the first season did feel more like a Western. This one was more like a Western fantasy because he really explored a lot more of the galaxy. But it did get a bit repetitive with the heist. That definitely was a thing that we saw a little bit too much. I would like it if in the future of this show, instead of making it more episodic, we actually have it more serialized to where, one episode cliffhangers into the next one, into the next, to the next, and it actually sort of has that like a big giant movie as opposed to it being one episode after an episode. I think that it worked for this season, but it's not a formula that I want to see them continue with in the future because I think it's kind of, in my opinion, it's a little bit too, I guess, behind the times of what modern shows are, if that makes sense. This is a minor criticism. It's not something that really bugs me too much, but I did notice that as I'm watching this show, it's like I kind of wanted to see who Mando was going to meet next as opposed to what Mando's going to do. You know what I mean? I feel like we already sort of got his backstory in the first season, and I'm hoping that with the third season, him and Bo-Katan can go back to Mandalore, and they really focus on the Mandalorian myths and legends and history in that, and kind of focus on that, as opposed to like having a new character come in to eventually be a launch pad for a new show, because it seems like they brought in Ahsoka and Cara Dune just to say, hey, we're going to give you guys, and Boba Fett, give you guys future spin-offs with these characters. And it's like, okay, that's nice, and that might be an effective way to promote new shows with The Mandalorian Season 2, but going forward, I want that formula to kind of change, and I want it to become more about the Mandalorian story. And now that Grogu's gone off with Luke Skywalker, I do hope that Season 3 kind of focuses more on that than anything else. Because it did feel that way, Now, it only felt that way up until the final 2 episodes. The Bill Burr episode where he pretty much, it was awesome. When they broke into the Imperial facility and he pretty much blew it up, and, they broke him out of prison. They had that fight on top of the truck and everything. That was so much fun to watch. I really enjoyed that episode, and it put a smile on my face. They kind of pulled a Django Unchained. How the scene where Dr. King or whatever, the scene where he just starts blasting away in Calvin Candy's place, it was that same thing. It was awesome. We got to see him unmask, and we saw a little bit more of his character. And him and Cara Dune's character. This season really made the Mandalorian character, albeit he wasn't the primary focus for a lot of it, it made him much more likable because he showed mercy a lot. He seemed like more of a chill guy. He wasn't just out just randomly killing people like you would think that a Mandalorian would do, like a Boba Fett would do. But we also saw Boba Fett and a good side to him as well, and a guy who keeps his word because he did promise to help Mando get the child back. And he kept his promise, even though I'm not really sure if he even knows if Mando succeeded. Because remember, he blasted off in the middle of the last episode, that is. And we don't even know if he even knows what happened. We know he went back to Jabba's palace, which will lead into the book of Boba Fett. But we don't know if he even knows that Luke showed up. And kind of funny if Luke crosses paths with Boba Fett again, considering that they did meet, albeit briefly, in Return of the Jedi. But that didn't happen. So it was fine. Also, this season kind of teased the sequel trilogy a lot. And I know some people don't want to hear that, but the idea of the sequel trilogy being retconned is bullshit. It's a BS story. It's nonsense. It's not real. It's not going to happen. I already made videos telling you all why it wasn't going to happen. It's a fake story. It's fake news. And this right here proves it. It's not going to happen after Ahsoka Tano. It's a lie. You're being lied to. In this season, we found out that the Imperial Remnant is taking Grogu's M cells to donate to a mysterious person, aka Palpatine, obviously, and the Sith cloners, to create Snoke. It didn't actually say it was Snoke, but it's obvious what it is, because especially with the fact that, at the end of the episode, or not the end, but in the middle of the episode, the finale, we see Moff Tarkin talking about a new order, and that's the first order. It's just, or the final order. It's like he kind of knows what Palpatine's grand plan is. And we also saw, of course, the teaser for Grand Admiral Thrawn. So I wonder how that's going to go for the Ahsoka show, if they're going to actually show Thrawn and see what he's going to do. You know, a lot of this season was done to kind of springboard more Star Wars. That's what it was used for. It was a vehicle to promote new shows and new characters that are going to become the centerpiece of the Star Wars television universe. Perhaps not so much the movies, although we don't know yet, but the Star Wars television universe is pretty much going to be run by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and that's the way it kind of should be because they have delivered quality. And the stories, I think, albeit the plots of every episode of this season were a bit thin. I mean, it kind of became a video game where Mando would go somewhere and it would become, hey, we'll help you, but you have to do this first. Oh, I got that, but first you have to help us out with this. And it became a video game, and that is something that I can accept it for this season, but I do not want them to continue in that path. I'm hoping that with the next season, like I said earlier in the review, they focus on more serialized storytelling and not this, because granted, like I said, it's not a huge criticism. It's not like I'm sitting here hating on it. But if the whole show becomes this, it's going to get old. You know, I don't want to see just heists. I actually would love to see in the next season if they focus on Bo-Katan and Mando going after Mandalore and freeing Mandalore and having it be one big war for the entire season, or at least for maybe the last 5 episodes or 4 episodes or so. That I think would be a lot better than them just doing this. You know, I want them to kind of move forward with that. But for this season, I think it works. The previous season did something similar, but this one felt a lot more like it was, oh, we'll help you, but first we need this, or give me that, or you trade this for that. You know what I mean? And that's something I hope that they kind of move past in the future. But I had so much fun. I mean, the Boba Fett episode, the Ahsoka Tano episode, the finale, the Bill Burr episode. It was just so much fun. I love... The thing is, that as much as I don't like the sequel trilogy, I'm never going to entirely hate them because I love the Star Wars universe, and I don't like watching them, honestly, that much anymore. I never like watching some of them at all, especially the last 2, but... I love the Star Wars universe. I love the sounds of Star Wars. I love the visuals of Star Wars. I love the characters of Star Wars, lightsabers and the different ships and whatnot. And that is all a nice aesthetic. It brings nostalgia and it brings comforting feelings. And the universe is so fun, right? It's so fun and such a great sort of distant view of our society. It's, the Mandalorian... At no point did this season feel like it was pandering. It didn't feel like it was political. At no point did I feel that. It just felt like an adventure story. And that's what I wanted. That's all I wanted is a Western adventure story. That's all I got. And that's the bottom line. So thumbs up for season 2 of The Mandalorian. And like I said, I hope they switch it up a little bit for the next season. I want it to be the same thing. But lots of emotions. And The Mandalorian is, to me, like I said before, the best Star Wars since the original trilogy. I know that some folks love Revenge of the Sith, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with that because I also like that movie. But there was just something about this season that just hit on certain nerves that didn't do, even though it is a fun movie, without question. I like it a lot. There was just something about this season that slightly edges it out. Now, again, I might change my mind on this, and maybe a couple of years I'll look back on this season and say, you know what, maybe it wasn't that great. Maybe it was just the hype that was going on. Maybe I was just in a cloud of hype and dopamine, and maybe after the hype fades, it'll just be like, okay. I mean, I'm always going to like it because it's objectively good. Like, it's in the sense of like, the aesthetics are good, the production's amazing, the acting is good. So it is a good piece of media. It's just, will I love it as much in a few years? I don't know. But I can tell you one thing. Some of these episodes I definitely will love forever because they're just that good, And there's some criticisms about the Ahsoka Tano thing I can get into, but really small stuff here and there, nitpicking. But, like for example, she didn't use the Force, which I thought was weird. But whatever, and the whole, like, Bo-Katan has to fight with Mando to get the Darksaber, even though that didn't happen in Rebels. That can probably be explained in the next season. I'm not going to hate them for that, but it was a success, I think. I think Mandalorian Season 2 was great. And like I said, it's the best piece of Star Wars we've had in a very, very long time. Even if you think Revenge of the Sith is better, or even if you think the Clone Wars is better, you have to admit that when it comes to live action, it's been a while. And if you do think that Revenge of the Sith was the last great piece of Star Wars media, that's fine too. Or if you think it was The Last Jedi, I know we have a lot of Last Jedi lovers, but to me, my opinion, this edged it out for me. So, yeah, top notch, good stuff. What do you think about season 2 of The Mandalorian? Let me know down below, and we'll talk soon.